Nehemiah 6 1-19, through the Bible. Chapter 6. Theme: Wall finished in spite of crafty opposition. We have seen that Nehemiah encountered just about every form of opposition imaginable in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Satan has thrown in his pathway many things from his bag of tricks to cause him to stumble and fall and fail in his endeavor. Satan does the same thing to us today, only many times in our experience, he succeeds, and we fail. God does not want us to fail. In fact, He has made every arrangement so that we do not need to fail, yet we do. But Nehemiah did not fail. In this chapter, we find that the wall is about finished. Now it came to pass, when Sanballat, and Tobiah, and Geshem the Arabian, and the rest of our enemies, heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates. Nehemiah 6:1. Notice the honesty of this man. He adds, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates. Nehemiah is like Nathaniel, because there is no guile in him whatsoever. He is not being subtle or clever. Unfortunately, there are many people in their church work who don't tell you everything they should tell you about certain matters. Many times their reports are not full and complete. They are slanted, they are built up and filled in, and the entire truth is not told. I have always appreciated honesty in my doctor. The first thing he told me, when he suspected that I had cancer, was, "Dr. McGee, I am going to tell you the truth because, if I don't, you won't have confidence in me." From that day to this, he has laid it on the line. When there didn't seem to be any hope for me, he told me the plain facts. He did not attempt to paint a rosy picture. He did not attempt to cover up. He told it like it was. I have always appreciated it. Honesty is something that is badly needed in business, in social gatherings, and in the church. Of course, we should not be blunt or crude. If you are introduced to a lady, you don't have to tell her that she is beautiful. If she is not, you can't kid her anyway. I think she knows. We simply need to be more honest in our dealings with one another. Now when the enemy, Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, and others hear that the wall is completed, Nehemiah honestly admits the report is a bit exaggerated. The gates are not set up. The honesty of Nehemiah is a tremendous thing. He tells it like it is. That Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, "Come, let us meet together, in some one of the villages, in the plain of Ono." But they thought to do me mischief. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, "I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease, whilst I leave it, and come down to you?" Nehemiah 6 2-3. The enemies now reverse their tactics. Since they could not stop the work, they now propose to get together with Nehemiah, and work out a compromise. Their intention is not to promote the welfare of Nehemiah. This is the old satanic method, of when you can't fight them, join them. Today, it is called the ecumenical movement. The place they were going to meet was on the plain of Ono. Nehemiah properly turned down their invitation. He said, "Oh, no, to Ono, because they thought to do me mischief." They were plotting against him, probably planning to slay him. There was no use going into great detail with the enemy. He simply sent messengers to them, saying, "I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down." The enemy wanted to compromise, but Nehemiah said, "No." There are those in the church today who want to compromise. They feel that you are bigoted and dogmatic if you don't meet with them and try to work out a compromise. I quit meeting with folks like that a long time ago. Today, I meet only with those who want to meet around the person of Christ. You would be amazed at some of the churches in which I have held meetings. Although I am in total disagreement with the organizations and some of their doctrines, I will meet with anybody around the person of Christ, but I am not prepared to meet with the enemy at all. Looking back a few years, I believe William Jennings Bryan made a big mistake in meeting Clarence Darrow in Cleveland, Tennessee, to debate the subject of evolution. I think Bryan walked all over Darrow. Any unbiased person who reads the debate will have to come to the conclusion that Bryan was on the winning side, but I believe that the very fact that he met with Darrow was wrong. It was really a losing battle, and it has certainly been demonstrated since then, that it was. You cannot win over an enemy by meeting with him like that. That is my conviction. Although I am an ordained minister, I don't belong to any denomination or organization. As a result, I can meet with any person or group who believes the Word of God, believes in the deity of Christ, and believes that He died for our sins, regardless of the label they use. It makes no difference to me. But I do not meet with the enemy. Nehemiah was doing a good work, and he did not have time to come down and waste his time with the enemy. God's people do not need to compromise. Nehemiah had an uncompromising attitude, and I admire him for it. Yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner. Then sent Sanballat his servant unto me, in like manner, the 5th time with an open letter in hand. Nehemiah 6:4-5. The enemy was persistent. He always is. Did they really want to be friendly and compromise with Nehemiah? The fact of the matter is that Nehemiah's presence was desperately needed in Jerusalem in order to complete the building of the wall. The letter from the enemy was couched in polite language, but it was a hook with bait on it. Notice that it contained a threat, wherein was written, "It is reported among the heathen, and Gashmu saith it, that thou and the Jews think to rebel, for which cause thou buildest the wall, that thou mayest be their king, according to these words." Nehemiah 6:6. Old Gashmu is ever with us. He is the fellow who is the worst gossip of all. I have discovered that sometimes the worst gossip is a man, and not a woman. This letter, accusing Nehemiah of attempting to rebel against Persia, and set up a separate state, was made public, either by being posted, or by being read aloud. It was designed to discourage those who were working on the wall. It accused Nehemiah of wanting to become king. "And thou hast also appointed prophets, to preach of thee at Jerusalem, saying, There is a king in Judah, and now shall it be reported to the king according to these words. Come now therefore, and let us take counsel together." Nehemiah 6:7. Not only did they accuse him of claiming kingship, they also accused him of hiring prophets to support what he said. These were awful things to circulate about Nehemiah. The letter indicated that they wanted to find out if these things were really true, because they were going to report it to the king. They are exerting pressure on Nehemiah to meet with them. "Then I sent unto him, saying, There are no such things done as thou sayest, but thou feignest them out of thine own heart." Nehemiah 6:8. Nehemiah's reaction to the enemy was, "You actually did not hear the things you were accusing me of, you made them up yourself." This was a nice way of calling them liars. "For they all made us afraid, saying, Their hands shall be weakened from the work, that it be not done. Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands." Nehemiah 6:9. In facing this problem, Nehemiah went to the Lord. He said, "The enemy is doing this to weaken me, and to hinder your work. Strengthen my hands." Afterward I came unto the house of Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah, the son of Mehetabeel, who was shut up, and he said, "Let us meet together in the house of God, within the temple, and let us shut the doors of the temple, for they will come to slay thee, yea, in the night will they come to slay thee." And I said, "Should such a man as I flee? And who is there, that, being as I am, would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in." Nehemiah 6:10-11. Shemaiah, a false prophet, pretends to have a great interest in Nehemiah's safety. He says he wants to reveal a plot against the governor's life. The temple was the only place where Nehemiah would be safe. He is asking him to do a very cowardly thing. What he did not reckon on was Nehemiah's spiritual insight. And, lo, I perceived that God had not sent him, but that he pronounced this prophecy against me, for Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Therefore was he hired, that I should be afraid, and do so, and sin, and that they might have matter for an evil report, that they might reproach me. My God, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat, according to these their works, and on the prophetess Noadiah, and the rest of the prophets, that would have put me in fear." Nehemiah 6:12-14. Nehemiah is in the thick of plots and schemes to destroy him. Well, He dealt with this crowd that pretended to be his friends, but he is still in a difficult spot. He is caught between a rock and a hard place. He turns around and finds himself in the middle of another plot, but he turns to God. The land was once again cursed with false prophets. It seems that they were the most determined enemies of God's servants. So the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month Elul, in 52 days, Nehemiah 6:15. Without fanfare of trumpets, great ceremony, or ribbon cutting, the wall is finished. And it came to pass, that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us, saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought of our God. Nehemiah 6:16. The work was finished in 52 days. Only God could have done this through them. But even though the wall is now completed, there is still danger. Moreover, in those days the nobles of Judah sent many letters unto Tobiah, and the letters of Tobiah came unto them. For there were many in Judah sworn unto him, because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, the son of Ara, and his son Johanan had taken the daughter of Meshullam, the son of Berechiah. Also they reported his good deeds before me, and uttered my words to him. And Tobiah sent letters to put me in fear. Nehemiah 6:17-19. The enemy still persists in his opposition, by circulating letters to the nobles of Judah. Tobiah had evidently married a daughter of one of the nobles. All of this time, there was this playing footsie, with the enemies of God. Tobiah had a telephone right into the walls of Jerusalem, so that everything Nehemiah did or said was reported to Tobiah. Also, they reported his good deeds before me. That is, these kinfolk by marriage, would come to Nehemiah and say, Nehemiah, you are too hard on Tobiah. He is really a lovely gentleman. Then they would begin to tell of his good works. And uttered my words to him. They were acting as liaison officers, which means they were a bunch of tattletales. Everything Nehemiah would say, and all that went on in Jerusalem, was reported to Tobiah. And Tobiah sent letters to put me in fear. Tobiah would respond with threatening letters.